Now on 4, what can I say about this next programme? Except that it's a load of old...
In tonight's Without Walls special, Jerry Sadowitz looks at the bad boys of the English language, swear words. First, Auberon Waugh asks why are expletives deleted?
Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Call My Bluff, the panel game which aims to uncover the meaning and derivation of a choice of words culled from the Oxford English Dictionary. Each of our distinguished guests will define the word behind me, and you at home can decide which of them is true and which is bluff. So without more ado, I'll hand you over to the captain of our panel, Barry.
Thank you, Juan, and incidentally, thank you for the literary review. My first guest on my right, his lectures, Jeremy Hardy Speaks the Nation, will be remembered when the Wreath lectures are forgotten, but not before. Jeremy Hardy. On my left, sophisticated, surly, sardonic, other words beginning with S, including sunny, but more to the point, funny. Will you welcome the one, the only, Donna MacPhail.
So, let's see what the first word is. Barry?
Bugger. Derived from a corruption of the older Scots word brugra, meaning to intrude or invade. It first appeared with its scurrilous meaning in a poem by William Dunbar, which I'm sure you're conversant with, the Treatise of the Twa Marriott Women, and I quote from that poem, "Let I never that lubber my legs ga between, to file my flesh na fumble, na brugra ma bogil." Still to this day, bugging, bugger, intrude, invade. To intrude or invade.
Thank you, Barry. And what derivation can you offer us, Donna?
Bugger, or buga, is from the Latin word meaning Bulgarian, which in the 14th century meant heretic, as Bulgarians were of the Eastern Orthodox religion, and therefore a person holding unorthodox views, and today meaning homosexual, a person who indulges in unorthodox sexual practices. And so bugger is a Bulgarian heretic who likes to take it up.
Right. So, Jeremy, your derivation, please.
Donna is right. It is buga, the origin of the word bugger. It's an Elizabethan word, though, and it's a word that means a fool or a jester, hence the bugger about, to fool about, and we only have to look in Shakespeare to find a reference to this word. Richard III tells us, "Come hither, fool, and practice thy buggery." So to bugger is to fool. Bugger is a fool.
Which is the true derivation?
I'm sorry, it's me.
So there we are. One of our most persistent taboo words is a descendant of a 14th century Bulgarian heretic. Now, I actually knew that. Regardless of which derivation is true, the important question is, were you shocked by the use of that word? I very much doubt it, because I believe that until now, our language has been loosening up the whole time. Our swear words are losing their power, and they're currently threatened with extinction through overuse. Gone are the days when a well-placed bloody could shock society to the core. George Bernard Shaw placed the B word in Eliza Doolittle's mouth in 1914 and set us off on the slow road to liberalisation. 50 years on, the same word was being beamed into millions of sitting rooms to spice up situation comedies.
You and your bloody heaven. You and your God. Eh? I mean, who is this God? Huh? Well, come on. What's he like? Well, he's like your queen. Oh. That's who he's like. He's like your queen, only higher. Much higher.
Yeah, and if I was useful.
You bloody blasphemous scum! Continue!
We only used the word bloody, mainly, and in the end we were rationed to a count of 25. And I remember Michael Mills, who did a comedy, calling me in one day and said, we've gone over our budget. I could never understand why. If the word was bad, you said it once, repetition of it was so important. But he said we'd gone over our budget of 25 and he was willing to give me two tits for 5 bloodies, you know.
Today, from Crown Prince to Prime Minister, anything goes. Although the press still believes such outbursts make headline news.
Fuck back Lenin! Fuck back Marx! Fuck the workers! Fuck the bosses! Fuck the unions! Fuck the scab! Fuck the police! Fuck the court! Fuck the judges! Fuck the bastard who robbed my bank!
On television, it takes the strongest words to create any shock at all. And even these are regularly used after 9 o'clock watershed.
Fuck the mayor! Fuck I want to hear! Fuck Jim Nelson! Fuck Jim Nelson! Fuck Jim Nelson! Who the fuck is this, Jimmy?
The astonishing thing about GBH is that there was, to my knowledge, there was no reaction from the public about the swearing in it. Alan Bleasdale had written an alternative. I just said, let's put it to Channel 4 and see what they say, and in fact, Channel 4 didn't make any comment on it. So we used it.
And a recent survey carried out by the Broadcasting Standards Council showed that today the word bloody, which caused all that trouble for Johnny Spate, is now thought to be offensive by only 5% of the population.
Most people, I think it was something like 2/3 of our respondents, felt that bloody was a mild word. So it has lost its strength. Certainly there are 4 words that are seen as being very, very strong. And they perhaps are most rigid in respondents' minds in terms of where they can be placed in a programme. Those words are fuck, cunt, motherfucker, and also a word which is an abusive word, which is nigger.
Perhaps the first use on television of the most controversial word of all was in a play produced by Verity Lambert.
What did he say?
Dr. Corsten is a cunt. I had a lot of correspondence with the IBA about that word. I think it was a real insult, and she needed to say that particular word. And in the end, to be fair to them, they accepted that as an explanation.
It was perhaps surprising then that in 1992, when producing a play for the BBC, Verity Lambert was ordered to replace the F word with shit.
The thing I drew from this experience with Running Late was that it is less easy apart from Channel 4. People are more conscious about language. Broadcasters are more conscious about language now than they were, say, 20 years ago.
So are we perhaps witnessing the beginnings of a backlash against swearing?
The Council has upheld more complaints in the last year on bad language in comparison with the year before. But we have had more complaints, absolutely. The watershed is a very important issue. A recent example of a finding that we have upheld was the chamomile lawn. It started at 9 o'clock, and within the first 15 minutes, one of the principal characters used the word fuck, and we had a complaint about it.
The terror run. Shall we do it this year? Polly says this may be our last holiday.
May I fuck you now? Now, at once.
I think the BSC inquiry and the ruling on the chamomile lawn is perfectly preposterous. I gather it was one person who was shocked, and because one person is shocked, the entire country is regaled with television, radio and newspaper reports of this, and apparently the whole country may now be deprived of such things in the future. That's minority rule, not majority rule.
I think the watershed should be moved. I think 9 o'clock is too early. People say about 10 o'clock. I would really say 11 o'clock or even midnight, because there are many young people who are still up at home watching television. Why should they have to be inflicted with this kind of material? I would really question why it has to be on television at all.
there is a minority who are very busy saying, you shall not watch, you shall not listen, you shall not hear, you shall not think about that. But it's a tiny minority, and they shouldn't be allowed to push around the majority. They should have their voice. We should discuss it. But I think it's a tremendous sign of fear that politicians and guardian angels of our arts and of our broadcasting are proliferating all over the place.
But whether there's a backlash or not, why do we get so heated about swear words? What is it about these particular words that turn us on or off? Where do they come from, and why are they so powerful? Moving to our next word. Jeremy, could you give us a definition for this one?
Well, I suspect that most people will already know this. Bloody also appears in milder synonyms as bleeding, blooming, blasted and blinking, and it's a medieval corruption of the phrase by Our Lady, Our Lady, of course, being the Virgin, or possibly of God's blood.
Donna, your derivation, please.
Only 300 years old, borrowed from the 17th century underworld slang to bloody as in wounding. Now, it's associated with bloodshed, violence, murder, and so recommended to the criminal, the rough classes, most of which were deported to Australia. And so therefore it's become an Australian adjective, as in Australia bloody are. And therefore bloody is a git who deserves a bit of a kicking, for example, cabinet ministers.
Barry.
Both those are plausible, but the actual definition derives from 17th and 18th century aristocratic rowdies known as bloods. Thus, drunk as a blood became bloody drunk, and my dictionary goes on to compare its late 19th century popularity with other intensives such as jolly, rattling, ripping, bloody good. It's almost a synonym, Bron, for extremely.
Well now, will the guilty party please reveal the truth? Well, there you are. The first for Call My Bluff, 2 truths for the price of 1. Many people will be surprised to find that bloody isn't a contraction of By Our Lady. This is an example of the kind of folk etymology and myth that surrounds some of our communist expletives. The origins of many swear words continue to confound etymologists and lexicographers.
The first oaths are all religious. It was a period when religion counted. When I say it was a period, I'm talking 15th century. So the first word is probably Gog, G-O-G, which is a euphemism for God, or cock, which in this case is C-O-K-K, and also a euphemism for God. And then you move on, you get these wonderful things like odds bodykins, God's little body, and snails, which is God's nails.
Words are fashionable things. I mean, they do come in and out of fashion all the time, and they're used and then they disappear. Quite an interesting term of abuse, for instance, is the word hussy, which is a word which I would not like to be referred to because it means a promiscuously available woman, basically. Now, it actually derives from housewife, and it was a term of endearment.
But enter those Victorian values at the beginning, or the 1830s, the 1840s, and there is no doubt that the language police come down, and a lot of words which really didn't cause too much trouble suddenly find themselves. I mean, arse is a good one, and probably bugger, and quite a lot of words that really no one really worried about very much in the 18th century, suddenly, for whatever the reasons, and I'm not a sociologist, became taboo.
There can be no doubt that today it's sexual and excretory obscenities which reign supreme. But what are the origins of these so-called 4-letter words?
First use in print of the word fuck is probably in a dictionary by a man called John Florio, which is called The World of Words, 1598. There is no doubt whatsoever that it's earlier than that. First supposed use of the word cunt is about 1230. There's a street in the old brothel area, Southwark, Group Cunt Lane. But the problem there is that the book that tells us this was not printed until 1954.
I haven't come across anyone with any good sort of knowledge about where the word cunt comes from. It seems to me, although etymologists suggest this is possible, really odd that it could have come from the Latin word, or originated in the Latin word cuneus, or cunus, coming from cuneus, which meant wedge. Now, I know what a cunt looks like, and the word wedge doesn't sort of spring to mind.
I'm never quite sure why people use a term like Anglo-Saxon words. I mean, what one would call the primary obscenity, fuck, is not Anglo-Saxon. What is Anglo-Saxon is turd, which of course means a piece of excrement, and that actually comes from the word turd, which is perfectly normal, 11th century. What do you do when you go to the lavatory? You deposit a turd or a turd. By 1250, in the way of language, this somehow finds itself in the slang bin. And yes, that's an Anglo-Saxon word. Slightly similar is crap, which comes from a Dutch word krappen, which presumably was around at the same sort of time. But that means, like turd, both of these words mean waste. They mean what you get rid of. And in fact, crap is also used to mean just the sweepings in a barn after threshing. Piss is one of those words that enters the language around 1250, saunters along very happily for the next 5.5 centuries, and enter the Victorian word police, and piss, which essentially is just an onomatopoeic word, I mean, then is shoved under the counter again. Everybody you get called a Burke, it means a fool, an idiot, but the point is that Burke is actually the Berkeley Hunt, not the Berkeley Hunt, but the Berkeley Hunt, and the Berkeley Hunt, or the Berkshire Hunt, means cunt. So what these people are saying when they say, you're right, Burke, what they're actually saying is, you're right, cunt, which is much more obscene. The older version, which is one of the great lexicographical jokes, is the word twat. Once again, used to mean fool, also means vagina, but the person who really got it wrong was the poet Robert Browning. Robert Browning, for reasons that I'm not quite sure of the detail, but read an early poem, I think a medieval poem, in which he found this word. He assumed, God help him, that it meant a nun's habit, or at least the hat part. A wimple, is it? I'm not sure. And so he does this wonderful poem in which he says something, 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 and an old nun's twat.
But how do swear words become invested with their power? And how does society decide one word is offensive and another not? And what do swear words tell us about a culture? Some, the Japanese, Malayan and Polynesian, for example, don't have any swear words at all.
I think the use of cunt as the worst swear word that anyone can think of says a great deal about misogyny in our society. And I think it reveals fear, disgust, and also perhaps something to do with a kind of denial of female sexuality. We as women aren't supposed to be sexual. We have to be on the whole virgins or mothers, and mothers are desexed. And to use the word cunt in a positive way, to say, right, this is a sexual organ and we're proud of it, would be no bad thing. But I can't go around saying cunt all the time on my own. It doesn't go down very well.
What gives it its power? The warhead is not contained in the phonetics. The warhead is contained in the semantics, in what it refers to and the social practices of prohibition which are associated with what it refers to. I believe that there are many, many explosive monosyllables which have got no vehemence attached to them at all. Block this. Stop that. There's no particular vehemence, explosive though they are. Buck up, meaning to hurry. But fuck up, or fuck off. Now, you see, you start to laugh, because, in fact, I went from buck up to fuck off. And what was important was not the phonetics, but the semantics of the situation.
So which direction will swear words take now? Will they gradually cease to have any power? Will new words be invented? Or will the Conservative backlash reverse the Liberal trend?
I think that words like fuck, cunt, arsehole, shit, and so forth will continue to have a magical power to offend. Not because of some hypothetical moral majority, but because in a sense, is putting the cart before the horse. We have to assume what is it that keeps such a moral majority in its place, existing, for whom, in fact, the words still have this sort of connotation. And the reason why the words still have such connotation is that they refer to objects and functions which are special and set aside and have got some sort of peculiar part to play in life, somewhat different from nostrils, eyelids, and ear holes.
I don't see new swear words, or not many new swear words coming into the English language, but compound words are coming. So a word like fuckwit or cunt bag, or, I mean, there are lots of them. Or inserting a fuck or a bloody in the middle of the word. I mean, abso-fucking-lutely.
It's the PC language, which is the offensive, which is causing the trouble now. You look at television now and you'll hear fuck and piss and shit on there a lot of the time now. And you can see sex and violence on there, but you must never refer to a foreigner in any derogatory tone.
The council found that words such as nigger, words that have racist overtones and racial overtones to them, could be as offensive, that particular word was as offensive or considered as strong as any of the other serious swear words.
What's the matter? You feeling a bit queasy, are you?
Well, don't worry me, mate. Give me a drop of blood. Don't bother me. Sight of blood don't upset me any.
What's the coon doing here?
So, whatever our society decides is a swear word, should film and television programmes be allowed to use them with absolute freedom?
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. God almighty. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, Jesus Christ! Jesus. I think that did the trick, Bob.
I think so, Father.
I don't use swearing, in a way. We try to capture how people talk in whatever situation they're in. And if it's in a working situation, then certainly men will use what you call swear words, but it's part of the rhythm of speech. It doesn't mean anything.
The vast majority of the people don't like this kind of material. And what these television companies are doing is they're pandering to a tiny minority. Why should they? Why can't they clean up their act and look after the wider majority of people who would welcome good, clean entertainment, which is a pleasure for us all to watch, and high literature produces all of that?
What broadcasting needs is to be wrenched away from this kind of queasy, little finger raised, middle class view and thrust into the centre of ordinary experience, of working class experience, because then it has a much more robust, tougher sensibility.
I think to use swear words for force in drama, on the screen or on the stage, you have to use them very selectively and very particularly. If you just do it all the time, it just loses itself. On the other hand, to have somebody saying to a writer, you mustn't do it at all, seems to me awful and wrong.
Lenny Bruce, American comedian, said everybody wants there to be what should be. Everybody wants life to be what should be. There is no what should be. What there is what is. And what is, in this context, is swearing. It will not go away, nor should it.
Here's our final word by way of a grand finale. Donna.
Yes, indeed, fuck. It's actually derived from the Chinese word fuk, meaning happiness, and it drifted into more common usage instead of swive, as swive off doesn't quite have the same effect. And so fuck you, you bloody bugger is not an insult at all. It actually just means happiness to you, you Australian of alternative sexual orientation.
Right, your derivation, please, Jeremy.
The original fucker was a ladies' man called John Le Fucker. Not to be confused with the Northern Blues guitarist John Lee Fucker. A man who gained a reputation for being sexually promiscuous, so he was the first in the line of Don Juans, Casanovas, Romeos and Tory ministers, who are all, of course, complete fuckers.
Last but not least, Barry, your definition, if you will.
Come with me now to 1664, the time of the plague, corpses filling the street of London and the population plummeting. Under such conditions, it became imperative to procreate. A royal command was issued, fuck. It became a code word in which the 4 letters stood for fornicate under command of the king. F-U-C-K, an injunction rather than a function, a regal decree. Fuck.
So which of these holds the true definition? So the truth is, nobody really knows the exact origins of the word. So that brings this happy occasion to conclusion. They're opening the drinks and hospitality. Thank you, panel, and I think we might as well sod off.
Who first said naff off? Who the smaghead? Find out after the break.